Welcome to World Information HD. Today, we're diving into numismatic magic, uncovering the top 16 most valuable and rare Lincoln pennies ever minted in the USA. These seemingly mundane coins have shattered expectations, selling for millions of dollars thanks to mind-boggling rarity, minting mistakes, and collector crazes. From 1909's legendary VDB penny to astonishing off-metal and needle errors in wartime cents, prepare to be amazed at what a simple penny can fetch on the auction block. Ready? Let's reveal the hidden treasures hidden in plain sight. In the world of American coin collecting, there are countless stories about tiny pieces of copper that turned out to be far more valuable than anyone could have imagined. At first glance, they look like any ordinary coin you'd find rattling around in your change jar or stuck between the seats of your car. But sometimes, hidden in plain sight, are pennies that collectors will pay thousands of dollars to own. One of those fascinating treasures is the 1960 D Mint Mark Lincoln 1-cent penny. This small coin, barely an inch in diameter, carries with it history, rarity, and the potential for extraordinary value. To understand the story of the 1960 D penny, we first need to step back in time. In 1909, the United States Mint introduced the Lincoln cent, replacing the old Indian head design. The coin was created to honor President Abraham Lincoln on his 100th birthday, making him the first real person to appear on an American coin. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the Lincoln cent quickly became one of the most iconic coins in American history. Its obverse design featured a detailed portrait of Lincoln, while the reverse displayed two wheat stalks framing the words, 1 cent, a design now known as the wheat penny. This design would remain until 1959, when the reverse was changed to depict the Lincoln Memorial, symbolizing the strength of Lincoln's legacy. By 1960, the Lincoln Memorial reverse was still relatively new, and collectors were paying close attention to subtle changes that appeared in the minting process. That year, something unusual happened. For reasons connected to the die engraving process, the U.S. Mint produced two different date sizes for the 1960 penny. Some were struck with a small date variety, while others carried a large date variety. At first, these differences seemed minor. But to collectors, even the smallest change can mean the difference between an ordinary penny and a highly sought-after treasure. The Denver Mint, which struck coins marked with a D Mint mark beneath the date, produced both the large date and small date varieties. Almost immediately, sharp-eyed collectors noticed the discrepancy. The small date variety was much scarcer than the large date, and as collectors began to search through rolls of coins, a frenzy began. Coin dealers in 1960 even advertised in newspapers, offering premiums for anyone who could supply rolls of small date cents from Denver. Suddenly, a coin that was worth just 1 cent at face value became worth far more to anyone lucky enough to find one. But that wasn't the only fascinating detail about the 1960 D penny. During the minting process, some coins experienced what numismatists call a double die error. This occurs when the coin die impresses the design onto the blank planchet more than once, slightly misaligned, creating a doubled image on the coin. On certain 1960 D cents, doubling can be seen in the date or the lettering, giving the coin a ghostly, shadow-like appearance. Collectors love these errors, because they represent a rare accident in the usually precise world of coin production. Another factor that makes the 1960 D penny so collectible is its connection to a famous transitional moment in American coinage. By the early 1960s, the U.S. Mint was struggling with rising production costs. Copper was becoming more expensive, and there was ongoing debate about whether the penny was even necessary in everyday commerce. Though the change wouldn't come until 1982, when the composition shifted from mostly copper to a copper-plated zinc, collectors in 1960 already knew they were living in a time of change. Every unusual coin from that era has since become a piece of numismatic history, and the 1960 D penny is no exception. When you hold a 1960 D Lincoln cent in your hand, you're holding more than just a small disc of metal. You're holding a story. Imagine the Denver Mint in 1960, a massive industrial facility where millions upon millions of coins were struck each day. Somewhere on that factory floor, presses pounded out coins at lightning speed. In the midst of all that mechanical precision, a slight difference in engraving, a doubled die, or a shift in date size gave rise to something extraordinary. It's a reminder that even in a world built on uniformity, accidents and variations can create rarity. Collectors prize the 1960D small date variety because of its relative scarcity. Most coins produced in Denver that year were the large date type, making the small date far more difficult to find. When searching through pocket change, the difference is subtle, but to trained eyes, the height and spacing of the numbers and the date reveal everything. For the small date, the numerals are slightly thinner, and the 0 in 1960 sits higher than in the large date version. These tiny distinctions transformed the coin from a common cent into a collector's prize. As the years passed, rolls of unsearched pennies from 1960 became increasingly desirable. Collectors began hoarding them, hoping to uncover one of the small date varieties or, even better, a double die error. Stories circulated about lucky finds, and the legend of the 1960D penny grew. To this day, coin shows and online marketplaces feature these coins, with dealers carefully labeling them as large date, small date, or double die. The thrill of the hunt is part of the magic. Another fascinating detail about the 1960D penny is how condition impacts its value. Like all coins, the grade, or state of preservation, makes a massive difference in how much collectors are willing to pay. A circulated penny that's been worn down in pockets and cash registers for decades might be worth only a few dollars, even if it's the small date variety. But a coin preserved in near-perfect condition, known as mint state, can bring staggering prices at auction. Coins graded at higher levels, especially with brilliant luster and sharp details, are the true stars of the collecting world. Consider the journey of one such penny. Imagine it struck in Denver in 1960, fresh and shiny, falling from the press into a bin, then being scooped into a bag and delivered to a local bank. Maybe it was rolled into paper wrappers and handed to a small business owner, or maybe it sat untouched in a collector's roll for decades. Its survival in pristine condition is almost miraculous. Most pennies from that era endured heavy circulation, tossed from hand to hand without a second thought. That's why high-grade examples are so valuable today. The story of the 1960D penny also highlights the broader culture of coin collecting in America. The 1960s saw a tremendous surge of interest in numismatics. Families would gather around their kitchen tables, poring over jars of coins, looking for hidden treasures. Kids swapped coins with friends, hoping to complete their sets of Lincoln cents. For many, the 1960D penny became a gateway into a lifelong hobby, sparking curiosity about the history of money and the artistry of American coinage. Beyond the small date and doubled die, there are even more minor varieties and errors connected to the 1960D penny. Some coins display repunched mint marks, where the D was punched into the die more than once, leaving a doubled or distorted appearance. These quirks add yet another layer of intrigue for collectors. Each variety tells a slightly different story about the minting process, reminding us that perfection is rarely achieved when millions of coins are struck at lightning speed. For new collectors, learning to identify these varieties can feel overwhelming, but it's also part of the fun. Every coin you examine is like a puzzle piece, waiting to reveal its secrets. You don't need expensive equipment to start. Even a simple magnifying glass can help uncover doubling, date styles, or mint mark anomalies. Many collectors today started their journey by examining the humble Lincoln cent, and the 1960D penny remains one of the most rewarding to study. What's truly remarkable is how such a small difference, a slightly smaller date, a doubled image, or an extra punch on the mint mark, can translate into real financial value. Coins that most people would dismiss as ordinary pocket change can, under the right circumstances, be worth thousands of dollars. It's a reminder that value isn't always obvious. Sometimes, it takes a careful eye, patience, and knowledge to recognize hidden treasure. And now, we come to the question that excites collectors and treasure hunters alike. How much can a 1960D Lincoln 1-cent penny actually be worth? The answer depends on the variety, the condition, and the demand among collectors. The year was 1963, a pivotal moment in American history. The nation was witnessing cultural shifts, political movements, and dramatic events that would shape its future. But while the headlines spoke of John F. Kennedy's presidency and the promise of a new era, something much smaller, yet equally important in its own right, was being struck at the Denver Mint. Tiny copper coins that would one day capture the imagination of collectors worldwide. We're talking about the 1963 D Mint Mark Lincoln 1-cent penny. At first glance, it looks like just another everyday coin, one you might casually drop into a vending machine or lose between the couch cushions. But beneath its copper sheen lies a story of history, design, rarity, and unexpected value. This is not just a penny, it's a piece of American heritage. Let's dive into the fascinating journey of this coin, its creation, what makes it special, and why collectors today are willing to pay astonishing amounts of money for certain examples. When you hold a 1963 penny in your hand, you're not just holding 1 cent of currency, you're holding the last breath of an era. The coin bears the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner, a design first introduced in 1909 to mark the centennial of Lincoln's birth. For over a century, this design has endured, but the 1963 issue stands out for more reasons than one. The obverse features the timeless bust of Lincoln facing right, with the word Liberty placed to his left and the year 1963 positioned to his right. Just below the date lies the small but significant D Mint mark, denoting the Denver Mint as its place of birth. Above Lincoln's head, the national motto, "In God We Trust," proudly rests, reflecting both tradition and identity. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial had not yet made its debut. That would arrive in 1959. Instead, the 1963 penny still showcased the 2 wheat stalks curving gracefully along each side, earning it the nickname Wheat Penny. Between the wheat ears lies the bold inscription, 1 cent, with United States of America just above, and the Latin phrase E pluribus unum crowning the top. This wheat reverse design, elegant and simple, was beloved by collectors and casual spenders alike. However, 1963 would be one of the last years it was produced before the design fully transitioned to the Lincoln Memorial style. That fact alone adds a touch of nostalgia and collectability to this coin. Now, let's talk about the minting process. In 1963, the Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of pennies. The exact mintage of the 1963 D penny stands at over 1.7 billion coins. That's right, billions. At first, that might make you wonder, how can something so mass-produced ever be valuable? The truth lies in the details. When so many coins are struck, variations are bound to occur. Small imperfections, striking errors, or unique qualities in the metal can create differences that set some coins apart from the rest. Collectors treasure these differences, because rarity fuels value. Among the 1963 D pennies, certain specimens exhibit doubling in the lettering or date, known as double die errors. Others may display off-center strikes, clipped planchets, or repunched mint marks, where the D was stamped more than once, leading to unusual appearances. To an untrained eye, these might look like flaws, but to a collector they are treasures, tiny quirks that transform a common penny into a rare prize. Condition also plays a massive role. Most of the 1963 D pennies circulated heavily. They passed through countless hands, spent in grocery stores, laundromats, and gas stations, losing their luster with every exchange. These worn-down examples are worth little more than face value. But a coin that was never spent, one that has survived in pristine condition for over 60 years, can command remarkable attention. These are graded by professional services such as PCGS or NGC, where coins are given a numerical score on the Sheldon scale from 1 to 70. A coin graded MS-60 is considered uncirculated but might have minor blemishes. A coin graded MS-65 shows beautiful luster and strong eye appeal. And then there are the top grades, MS-67, MS-68, and beyond. These are the rarest survivors, nearly flawless in appearance, almost as if they rolled off the mint press yesterday. Imagine how difficult it is for a coin struck in 1963 to survive decades without scratches, nicks, or discoloration. It's almost like finding a time capsule, a glimpse of history perfectly preserved. That's why collectors go to extraordinary lengths to secure high-grade examples, and that's why auction prices can soar. Let's place this in historical context. The year 1963 wasn't just another year, it was one of profound change. John F. Kennedy was tragically assassinated in November, an event that shook the nation to its core. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his iconic "I Have a Dream" speech during the March on Washington. The Beatles were on the rise, bringing a cultural wave that would soon take over America. All of this was happening while the Denver Mint was striking these pennies. When you hold one today, it isn't just a coin, it's a witness to a year that changed America forever. Another fascinating aspect of the 1963 D penny is its composition. Unlike modern pennies, which are primarily zinc-coated with copper, the 1963 penny was made of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. Each one weighs about 3.11 grams. That high copper content gives the coin a warm, reddish hue when freshly minted, though many examples have since toned into deeper browns over time. Copper itself carries intrinsic value, especially compared to the nearly worthless zinc cores used today. Collectors often feel a deeper connection to these older, heavier pennies because they represent a time when even the smallest denomination felt substantial in hand. So how do we determine the true value of a 1963 D penny today? Let's break it down. For circulated examples, those that have seen everyday use, most are worth only a few cents over face value. They're common, abundant, and hold sentimental rather than monetary worth. But for uncirculated examples, the story changes. A 1963 D penny in mint state condition can be worth several dollars, especially if it exhibits strong luster and sharp details. As the grade climbs higher, so does the value. Coins graded MS-65 can fetch tens of dollars, while MS-66 examples may sell for hundreds. And then there are the outliers, the near-perfect specimens, the coins that almost defy time. These are the ones that collectors dream of. At major auctions, such flawless 1963 D pennies have stunned the coin world with prices that leave jaws dropping. The world of coin collecting is fascinating because it blurs the line between history, art, and investment. To some, a penny is just a penny. But to a numismatist, each coin tells a story of design, of the people who struck it, of the era it represents, and of the journey it has taken through decades of human hands. Think about it. The penny you find in your change today might once have been in the pocket of someone who witnessed the civil rights movement, who listened to Kennedy's speeches on the radio, who bought a cup of coffee in 1963 for just 10 cents. That connection to the past makes even the smallest coin priceless in a way that goes beyond money. And now we come to the heart of the story. Out of the billions of 1963 D Lincoln cents, a select few have achieved legendary status. Preserved in impeccable condition, with surfaces so clean they almost glow, these coins are the pinnacle of what collectors seek. At auction, one such specimen shattered expectations. Graded at the highest levels, it sold for an extraordinary amount, proving that even the smallest denomination in American currency can reach heights once thought impossible. The final price? $34,583. Welcome back, everyone, to another exciting and eye-opening journey into the world of rare American coins. Today, we're diving into the fascinating story of a small yet historically significant coin, the 1972 D Mint Mark Lincoln 1-cent penny. At first glance, it may look like just another ordinary penny, the kind you've probably seen hundreds of times rattling around in change jars, tucked away in old piggy banks, or lying forgotten in drawers. But what if I told you that this little copper coin, produced over 50 years ago, could be worth far more than its face value? What if this 1-cent piece could potentially be hiding a value that would shock collectors and non-collectors alike? That's the magic of numismatics, the study and collecting of coins. It's not just about money, but about history, artistry, errors, rarity, and sometimes sheer luck. The 1972 D Lincoln penny is a perfect example of how something so ordinary in appearance can become extraordinary once you know what to look for. So settle in, because today we're peeling back the layers of this little coin's story, its history, its design, the errors that make certain versions so rare, and ultimately, how collectors have come to prize it. Let's start with the basics. The year was 1972. America was in the midst of a changing era. Vietnam dominated the headlines, Nixon was president, and cultural shifts were sweeping across the nation. And yet, while all this was happening, the U.S. Mint continued its daily task of producing billions of coins to fuel the American economy. In Denver, Colorado, the branch mint struck the Lincoln 1-cent penny with the D Mint mark. The coin followed the same design that Americans had been familiar with since 1909, the portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, designed by Victor David Brenner. This was no ordinary design. Lincoln was the first real person to appear on U.S. coinage, and Brenner's creation was a masterpiece of both art and symbolism. His stern but noble gaze, his detailed features, and the carefully carved lettering made the penny more than just a piece of change. It was a tribute to a president who preserved the nation during its darkest days. On the reverse, the coin bore the image of the Lincoln Memorial, introduced in 1959 to mark the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. If you look closely at the memorial, you can even see a tiny engraving of Lincoln's statue inside, making this design especially remarkable for its attention to detail. So, while many people dismiss the penny as just a penny, collectors saw layers of artistry and national pride hidden in plain sight. But what makes the 1972 D penny so special? Why should collectors pay attention to a coin that was minted in the billions? The answer lies in two key things: minting errors and condition. First, let's talk about minting errors. When the U.S. Mint produces billions of coins, mistakes are bound to happen. Dies wear out, misalign, or double strike. In 1972, one of the most famous errors in penny history occurred, the doubled die obverse, where the inscriptions and details on Lincoln's portrait were struck twice, creating a dramatic doubling effect. Now, while the most famous doubled die of 1972 comes from the Philadelphia Mint, Denver pennies also had their quirks and errors. Collectors have identified examples of doubled dies, repunched mint marks, and even small die variations that make certain 1972 D pennies stand out. For example, on some 1972 D pennies, the D mint mark itself appears to have been punched into the die more than once. This creates what is known as a repunched mint mark, where the D looks doubled or slightly offset. While subtle, collectors prize these coins for their uniqueness, since they show the human element in coin production, the imperfections that slip through quality control. In other cases, the lettering, such as "In God We Trust" or "Liberty," may appear doubled or distorted due to die wear. These imperfections, rather than devaluing the coin, actually make it more desirable to collectors, because they tell a story. They show that even in a world of machines, human error and chance play a role. Second, condition matters. A penny that has been in circulation for decades, scratched, worn down, or discolored, will not hold the same value as one that looks as fresh as the day it left the Denver Mint. Collectors prize coins in mint state condition, those with sharp details, no wear, and often a gleaming red luster. For copper coins like the Lincoln cent, color is also important. Collectors grade these coins as red, RD, red-brown, RB, or brown, BN, depending on how much of the original reddish copper color remains. A 1972 D penny in pristine red condition can fetch significantly higher prices than one that has dulled over time. Now, here's where things get interesting. With so many 1972 D pennies out there, how do you know if you have one worth keeping? Well, the first step is to check the mint mark. If it's a clear, single D, you may just have a standard penny worth its face value. But if you spot doubling on the mint mark, or even on the lettering and numbers, that's when you need to pay closer attention. Collectors often use magnifying glasses or coin microscopes to examine their coins in detail. What may look like a normal penny to the naked eye could, under magnification, reveal a rare doubled die or repunched mint mark. The second step is to examine the coin's overall condition. Coins are graded on a scale from poor, P1, all the way up to mint state 70, MS 70, with higher grades bringing higher values. Most circulated 1972 D pennies are worth just a penny. but high-grade examples, especially those with unique errors, can command impressive prices. Imagine finding a coin in your pocket change, taking a closer look, and realizing that what you thought was worth 1 cent is actually worth thousands of dollars. That's the thrill of coin collecting. It's like a treasure hunt, where every coin has the potential to be something extraordinary. But beyond just the monetary value, these coins carry history. Each penny has traveled through time, passing through countless hands, vending machines, cash registers, and piggy banks. Some have been tucked away for decades, forgotten in coin rolls or jars. Others have been cherished by collectors since the day they were minted. Every scratch, every nick, and every shine tells a story about where that coin has been and the era it represents. The 1972 D penny is also part of the larger story of the Lincoln cent, which is one of the longest-running coin series in American history. From 1909 until 2008, the penny bore Lincoln's portrait on the front, and for most of that time, the wheat ears or the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. Generations of Americans grew up with this coin in their pockets. And while inflation has reduced its purchasing power, its symbolic value remains strong. It reminds us of Lincoln's legacy and the enduring values of unity and perseverance. So, why does this particular coin draw so much attention from collectors? Because it represents the perfect blend of history, artistry, rarity, and possibility. It's a reminder that sometimes the most valuable things are hidden in plain sight. A penny you ignore on the sidewalk could be the very one that changes your life. And now, the part you've been waiting for: just how much can a rare, high-quality 1972 D mint mark Lincoln penny be worth? While most examples are worth only a cent, rare versions with pristine condition, full red luster, or remarkable era features can command astonishing values at auctions and among serious collectors. In fact, some have sold for as much as $24,999. Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive into the fascinating world of rare American coins. Today, we're going to explore a piece of history that might be hiding in plain sight inside your old coin jars, tucked away in your drawer, or perhaps even rattling around in your pocket change. This coin is none other than the 1973 no-mint mark Lincoln cent, also known simply as the 1973 penny. Now, you may be wondering, what makes this particular penny so important? After all, it's just 1 cent, right? A tiny copper coin that we use almost without thinking. But here's where things get interesting. Some pennies from this year carry an incredible value, a value so high that collectors will pay thousands of dollars for a single coin in excellent condition. By the end of this video, you'll understand why a simple 1 cent coin can sometimes be worth as much as a small fortune. So, let's step back in time for a moment and explore the story of the 1973 Lincoln cent. The Lincoln cent series itself has a long and rich history. It first appeared in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of President Abraham Lincoln's birth. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the coin became instantly popular, not just because it was the first American coin to feature a real person, but because Lincoln was already considered one of the most respected figures in American history. For over a century, the Lincoln penny has been a part of daily life, passed from hand to hand, generation to generation. By 1973, the Lincoln cent had already been circulating for 64 years. At that time, the composition of the penny was primarily 95% copper and 5% zinc. That copper content is part of what gives older pennies their distinctive color and weight. This is important because in later years, beginning in 1982, the U.S. Mint changed the composition to mostly zinc with only a thin copper coating. That means pennies made before the early 1980s not only have historical value but also a certain intrinsic value due to their copper content. But what about 1973 specifically? The year 1973 was an interesting one for coin collectors. That year, pennies were struck at several different mints across the United States, including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Pennies from Denver carry the small D mint mark under the date. Pennies from San Francisco, which were mostly proof coins made for collectors, carry the S mint mark. But the Philadelphia Mint, which struck the majority of circulation pennies, did not use any mint mark at all. That's why when you see a penny from 1973 without any letter under the date, you're looking at one struck in Philadelphia. And while billions of these coins were made, there's more to the story than just the number produced. The key to understanding the potential value of a 1973 no mint mark Lincoln penny lies in its condition, its rarity in certain grades, and the subtle variations that sometimes occurred during the minting process. Let's talk about condition first. The condition of a coin is described in terms of grade. A penny that's been in circulation for decades, passed through countless hands, will often appear scratched, dull, and worn down. These circulated coins are usually worth only face value. But an uncirculated coin, one that has been carefully preserved and looks nearly brand new even after 50 years, can be worth far more. Collectors often seek coins graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC, which assign a number grade to a coin based on its sharpness, color, and lack of imperfections. For example, a grade of MS60 means mint state with some noticeable marks, while MS67 or higher indicates a coin that is nearly flawless. Very few coins survive in those higher grades, and that scarcity drives up the value dramatically. Now, what makes the 1973 penny even more intriguing are the varieties and errors. Mint errors happen when something goes wrong during the coin production process, and they can turn an ordinary coin into an extraordinary rarity. Some examples include doubled dies, off-center strikes, or coins struck on the wrong metal planchet. The most famous type of error collectors look for in Lincoln cents is the doubled die. This happens when the die used to strike the coin has the design imprinted slightly twice, creating a doubling effect. On a penny, you might notice this doubling in the date, the words Liberty, or the phrase In God We Trust. For certain years like 1955 or 1969's, doubled die cents are legendary and can fetch thousands of dollars. While 1973 does not have a widely recognized double die variety, minor doubling and other anomalies still catch collectors' eyes. Another feature that can add to a penny's value is its color designation. Collectors and grading services classify copper coins as red, red-brown, or brown. A coin that still shines bright red, just like it did when it left the mint, is the most desirable and often commands the highest price. As copper ages, it naturally darkens, turning brown over time. That means finding a 1973 penny that remains brilliant red after decades is an exceptional find. Let's not forget about proof coins. In 1973, the San Francisco Mint produced special proof Lincoln cents specifically for collectors. These coins were struck using specially prepared dies and polished planchets, giving them a mirror-like finish. Proof coins are not intended for general circulation, and they often have extraordinary detail and eye appeal. While they typically carry less value than rare mint errors, pristine proof coins can still be worth significantly more than face value. So, where does this leave us with the 1973 no mint mark penny? The majority of these coins are still common and worth only a cent. But within the massive population, there are those rare gems, the nearly perfect examples, the coins with vibrant red color, and the ones that have managed to survive half a century without blemishes. These are the coins that can command staggering prices in the numismatic market. Over the years, auctions have shown just how valuable these seemingly ordinary pennies can be. Collectors are willing to pay high prices for the chance to own the finest known examples. A 1973 penny with no mint mark in superb condition, graded at the top of the mint state scale, has sold for prices that most people would never expect for a coin worth just 1 cent on its face. Now, let's imagine for a moment. You find yourself going through an old box in the attic. Inside, you discover a jar of coins saved by your parents or grandparents. At first glance, it's nothing but loose change. But then, you notice one particular penny, dated 1973, with no mint mark under the date. You take a closer look. The coin gleams with a red brilliance, the details of Lincoln's hair and coat are sharp, and the surface is smooth and clean. Could it be one of those rare high-grade examples? That single penny could potentially change your life. This is why coin collecting is so fascinating. Every coin has a story, and every coin has the potential to surprise us. It's not just about the money, it's about history, preservation, and the excitement of discovery. The Lincoln penny, one of the most familiar coins in America, still has mysteries left to uncover, even after more than a century in circulation. So, if you have a 1973 penny without a mint mark, don't dismiss it. Take the time to examine it carefully. Look at the details. Check the condition. Consider having it professionally graded if it looks especially sharp. You never know, your 1 cent could turn out to be a prized treasure in the numismatic world. And now, the question you've been waiting for: how much is the rarest and finest example of a 1973 no mint mark Lincoln cent worth? In auctions, a coin of this type, in the highest mint state condition, has been valued at as much as $22,000. Welcome back to another fascinating journey into the world of American coins. Today, we'll dive deep into one of the most intriguing small treasures ever to circulate through the hands of millions of people across the United States: the 1976 Lincoln penny without a mint mark. At first glance, this coin may appear to be just another copper cent, the kind you might find rolling around at the bottom of a pocket or hiding in the corner of an old jar. But if you look closer, you'll discover there's far more to it. This simple penny from the bicentennial year carries history, artistry, and mystery. And for those who truly understand its rarity, it holds a value that goes far beyond 1 cent. To appreciate the story of the 1976 penny without a mint mark, we must first take a step back in time. The year was 1976, and the United States was celebrating its 200th anniversary of independence. Across the country, patriotism filled the air. The government and the U.S. Mint planned commemorative coins to honor the bicentennial, releasing special designs for the quarter, half-dollar, and dollar coins. These coins featured unique images of Independence Hall, the Liberty Bell, and a drummer boy, reminding Americans of their nation's birth. But while these larger denominations were receiving redesigns, the humble Lincoln cent remained untouched. It continued to bear the classic profile of President Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, designed by Victor David Brenner, first released in 1909. By 1976, the Lincoln penny had already been in circulation for more than 65 years, becoming a symbol of both familiarity and stability in American coinage. Now, here's where the story gets interesting. Most 1976 pennies were struck in two locations: Denver, which left its familiar D mint mark, and Philadelphia, which, at that time, did not use a mint mark on cents. This means that if you have a penny from 1976 without a mint mark, it was made in Philadelphia. At first glance, it may not sound unusual. After all, the Philadelphia Mint produced billions of pennies that year. But the real question is, why would collectors and experts pay special attention to these coins? The answer lies in the details, the variations, and the condition. Let's start with production numbers. In 1976, the U.S. Mint produced over 4 billion Lincoln cents. That's an astronomical figure. With such a huge number, you might think that no single penny from that year could be considered rare or valuable. Yet, hidden among the billions, there are unique survivors, coins that avoided heavy circulation, coins struck with exceptional clarity, and even coins that display errors or anomalies from the minting process. These differences can turn an ordinary cent into a sought-after collectible. For example, coins with double die-averse errors, where the inscriptions such as, "In God We Trust, Liberty," or even the date, 1976, appear doubled, are highly desirable. Other examples include off-center strikes, clipped planchets, or coins struck on the wrong type of metal planchet. Such minting mistakes are incredibly rare and make the coin stand out from the billions of normal strikes. Another key factor is condition. Collectors value coins on a grading scale, ranging from good to mint state. The vast majority of 1976 pennies you'll find today are worn down from circulation. They've passed through countless hands, been tossed into drawers, dropped on sidewalks, and rattled around in vending machines. These coins often have scratches, discoloration, and flattened details. But imagine finding a 1976 no mint mark Lincoln penny in pristine, uncirculated condition, one that looks almost as though it was just struck yesterday. Such coins are rare, because most people didn't think to save pennies from everyday change in 1976. The ones that were carefully preserved, however, can be highly valuable today. Now let's talk about the design itself. The obverse features Abraham Lincoln, facing right, with the inscriptions, "In God We Trust." At the top, Liberty, to his left, and the date, 1976, to the right. The reverse, created by Frank Gasparo, depicts the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. If you look closely, you'll even notice that the tiny statue of Lincoln is visible inside the memorial, a detail often overlooked by casual observers. Surrounding the memorial are the words, "United States of America," and 1 cent, with the Latin phrase, "E pluribus unum," above. The artistry may seem simple today, but at the time, it represented a balance of tradition and national pride. Every penny carried a piece of history, honoring both Lincoln's legacy and the ideals of the American Republic. Now, what makes the Philadelphia strike, those without a mint mark, especially appealing to collectors is its place in history. Philadelphia was the nation's original mint, the birthplace of American coinage. For decades, Philadelphia coins bore no mint mark at all, making them unique in comparison to Denver or San Francisco issues. When you hold a no mint mark penny from 1976, you're holding a piece of Philadelphia's long-standing tradition. But beyond history and production, the real fascination lies in value. Imagine you're sifting through your change jar and you come across a bright, shiny 1976 penny without a mint mark. You might think it's worth exactly 1 cent. But under the right conditions, that same coin could command a staggering price at auction. Collectors are willing to pay extraordinary amounts for coins that are rare, flawless, or historically significant. Over the years, there have been cases where common-looking pennies shocked the world when sold at auction. The thrill comes from the fact that anyone, literally anyone, could stumble upon such a coin without realizing it. That's what makes the hunt for valuable coins so exciting. You don't need to be a professional collector to get lucky. You just need a sharp eye, a little knowledge, and a willingness to look closely at the change you handle every day. Think about it for a moment. In 1976, a penny could still buy a piece of candy, a gumball from a machine, or even contribute to a few minutes on a payphone. Fast forward nearly 50 years, and that same penny, if preserved in perfect condition or carrying a rare minting error, could be worth thousands of dollars. It's a transformation from pocket change to treasure, a reminder that history sometimes hides in the most ordinary of places. Let's also not forget the cultural significance of the bicentennial year. While the quarter, half-dollar, and dollar coins were marked with patriotic redesigns, the Lincoln cent quietly continued as usual. In a way, this made the 1976 penny even more symbolic. It was the everyday coin, the one that people carried with them as they celebrated the nation's 200th birthday. It witnessed fireworks, parades, and family gatherings, serving as a tiny companion to a year of immense national pride. So, what should you look for if you come across a 1976 penny without a mint mark? First, examine the condition. Is it shiny and free of scratches? Are the details of Lincoln's face, hair, and coat crisp and clear? Second, check for errors, doubling, off-center strikes, or anything unusual in the design. And third, consider professional grading. A coin authenticated and graded by a trusted service like PCGS or NGC can increase its value dramatically, because collectors trust certified quality. Coin collecting, after all, isn't just about the money. It's about holding history in your hands. Every coin has a story, from the people who designed it to the workers who struck it at the mint, to the countless lives it may have touched in circulation. The 1976 Lincoln penny without a mint mark tells the story of a nation celebrating its bicentennial, of a mint steeped in tradition, and of the hidden treasures that still exist among everyday change. And now, we come to the final question, the one that makes this story truly unforgettable. What is the highest value ever reached for a 1976 no mint mark Lincoln 1-cent penny in perfect condition? The answer may surprise you. One such coin, preserved in extraordinary quality, has been valued at an incredible $31,000. Welcome back, everyone, to another fascinating deep dive into the world of American coins and hidden treasures that may be hiding right inside your pocket change. Today, we are going to explore one of the most underrated yet truly intriguing coins of the modern era, the 1980 Denver Mint Lincoln 1-cent penny. At first glance, this coin looks like any other regular copper-colored penny that you might pass along without thinking twice. It seems ordinary, common, and almost too simple to be of any interest. But, as we'll uncover in today's journey, the story of the 1980 Lincoln cent is filled with history, small details, and potential surprises that can make it worth far more than just a single cent. This is a coin that teaches us how even the tiniest details can change something seemingly average into a collector's treasure. So sit back, because we're going to break down the history behind this penny, the fascinating features that make it unique, the minting process, the role of the Denver Mint, what collectors search for, and of course, why some rare examples have sold for life-changing amounts of money. Let's begin by traveling back in time. The year is 1980. Ronald Reagan is about to enter the White House. The United States is experiencing a wave of cultural changes, and the coinage of the nation is beginning to reflect both economic and material challenges. By 1980, the U.S. Mint had been producing the Lincoln cent for more than 70 years, ever since it was introduced in 1909 to honor the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth. This coin was revolutionary for its time, because Lincoln was the first real person to appear on U.S. circulating currency, breaking the tradition of using classical allegorical figures. The design of the penny, created by Victor David Brenner, became instantly iconic. On the obverse side, the front, you have the familiar bust of Abraham Lincoln facing to the right, with the word Liberty to the left and the motto, "In God We Trust," above his head. The date appears on the right-hand side, and just below the year 1980, you'll see the small D Mint mark, which indicates that the coin was struck at the Denver Mint. On the reverse side, the penny still bore the design that had been introduced in 1959 for Lincoln's 150th birthday. This is the famous Lincoln Memorial reverse, designed by Frank Gasparo. The detail of the memorial is so intricate that, under magnification, you can actually see a tiny representation of the statue of Lincoln inside the building. It's a remarkable example of miniature engraving, and it connects the obverse and reverse in a very symbolic way. Now, here's where things start to get interesting. The 1980 penny was struck during an era of change. Just 2 years later, in 1982, the U.S. Mint switched the composition of the penny from being primarily copper to being primarily zinc with a thin copper plating. This change was made because the rising cost of copper was making it too expensive to continue minting coins that were worth less than their metal content. So, the 1980 Denver penny belongs to the last generation of solid copper Lincoln cents, composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc. For collectors, this gives the coin an added level of importance because it marks the end of a long era. Copper coins have always had a special place in the history of American coinage. They have a different feel, a heavier weight, and a richer tone compared to the later zinc pennies. Collectors often describe them as having more character, especially when preserved in higher grades with their original reddish luster intact. The Denver Mint, where these coins were struck, has an equally fascinating history. Located in Colorado, it has been an essential part of U.S. coin production since the early 1900s. By 1980, the Denver Mint was striking billions of coins annually to meet the country's circulation needs. That's right, billions. The sheer number of coins produced might make you think that every 1980 penny is common and essentially worthless. But as always with coin collecting, rarity is not just about how many coins were minted. It's about condition, errors, and survival rates. Let's talk about condition first. Most 1980 pennies were heavily circulated. They ended up in cash registers, vending machines, piggy banks, and pockets across America. Over time, they became scratched, worn, and discolored. Finding one in pristine, mint-state condition, especially with bright red copper luster, is far more challenging than you might imagine. These are the coins that collectors seek out, because a coin's grade can mean the difference between it being worth 1 cent and being worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Next, we move into the realm of mint errors and varieties, which is where things become truly exciting. Coin errors occur during the minting process, and in many cases, they create unique one-of-a-kind coins that collectors will pay huge premiums for. With the 1980D Lincoln cent, some of the most well-known errors include off-center strikes, double dies, and striking issues. A double die occurs when the coin receives more than one impression from the die during the minting process, causing doubling on the letters, numbers, or design details. For the 1980D penny, collectors have reported double dies on the obverse, particularly on the date and the word Liberty. These coins are scarce and can command significant attention in auctions. Another valuable error involves off-center strikes, where the coin is not properly aligned during minting. If the off-center strike is dramatic enough, with a large blank crescent visible, the coin becomes not only rare but visually striking. Collectors love errors that are obvious and unusual, and the 1980D penny has its fair share of them. Even small details like repunched mint marks, where the D appears to have been stamped more than once, can create varieties that specialist collectors hunt for. These small quirks elevate what would otherwise be a common penny into something worth far more. But what truly adds mystery to the 1980D penny is how certain examples in gem condition have broken expectations at auctions and private sales. Collectors and investors alike are willing to pay extraordinary amounts for the highest graded examples certified by professional grading services. For instance, coins graded at MS67 red or higher are incredibly difficult to find and can bring eye-popping figures. Why? Because these coins represent the very finest survivors of billions struck. Out of all the coins that have been tossed around and worn down, only a handful remain in museum-quality preservation. It's worth noting that penny collecting, or cent collecting, has always been one of the most popular entry points into numismatics. Many people start with pennies because they are accessible, affordable, and deeply tied to American history. Over time, collectors often become fascinated by how much variation and intrigue can be found in a coin as small and humble as the 1-cent piece. The 1980D penny, with its connection to the copper era, its Denver mint mark, and its potential for rare varieties, fits right into this tradition. What makes this story so compelling is that pennies like these are still out there, waiting to be found. You could stumble upon one in your change jar, your grandparents' coin collection, or even in an old forgotten drawer. The idea that something so small could carry hidden value is what fuels the imagination of collectors worldwide. So, what does this all lead to? Why are people willing to search through countless pennies, magnifying glass in hand, hoping to uncover one perfect specimen? The answer is simple. Because extraordinary examples of the 1980D Lincoln penny have already proven themselves to be worth astonishing amounts. And this brings us to the most remarkable part of today's journey. In recent years, collectors have seen one of these seemingly ordinary 1980D Lincoln 1-cent pennies sell for a staggering $32,467. The story of the Lincoln 1-cent penny has fascinated collectors, treasure hunters, and everyday Americans for more than a century. Among the countless pennies that have passed through millions of hands, some have stood out for their rarity, unusual characteristics, or remarkable value. Today, we dive deep into the world of one such coin that many might overlook, the 1981D Mint Mark Lincoln 1-cent penny. At first glance, this coin may look ordinary, but behind its small copper surface lies a story filled with history, design changes, rare errors, and unexpected treasure for those lucky enough to find it. When we talk about the Lincoln cent, it is important to remember that this is not just any coin. First issued in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln, it became the first American circulating coin to feature a real person rather than a symbolic figure. Over the decades, this design evolved but still carried the legacy of Lincoln's profile. By the time 1981 rolled around, the Lincoln cent had already become one of the most recognizable coins in U.S. history, a staple in wallets, purses, and piggy banks across the nation. But why is 1981 such an important year in the world of pennies? To understand that, we need to go back to the broader context of the time. The late 1970s and early 1980s were years of change for America's coinage. Inflation was steadily rising, and the cost of producing coins was also increasing. Copper, the primary metal used in Lincoln cents, had become more expensive, and the U.S. Mint was actively searching for alternatives. Pennies minted in 1981 were among the last to be struck with a composition of 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin. Starting in 1982, the composition shifted to mostly zinc with a thin copper plating. This makes the 1981 Lincoln penny one of the final true copper cents in American history. The Denver Mint, marked with a small D mint mark just beneath the date, was a major producer of these coins. Millions upon millions were struck there in 1981. Because of this massive production, the average 1981 D penny may seem common. You could pull one from circulation and think nothing of it. But in the world of coin collecting, the details matter more than the sheer number minted. Tiny differences, rare variations, and unusual minting errors can transform a coin from ordinary pocket change into a collector's treasure worth thousands. Before we get into the rarities and the potential values, let's take a closer look at the design of this coin. The obverse, or front side, features the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. This portrait, used since 1909, has become a symbol not only of Lincoln's legacy but also of American coinage itself. Just beneath Lincoln's chin, you'll find the word Liberty, while the year of mintage, 1981, is displayed to the right, accompanied by the small D mint mark signifying Denver. Above Lincoln's head is the national motto, "In God We Trust," a phrase that has appeared on pennies since the mid-20th century. On the reverse side, designed by Frank Gasparo, stands the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. This design, which had been used since 1959, replaced the original, wheat ears, reverse. If you look closely at the Lincoln Memorial on the coin, you might notice a tiny detail that many people miss. A tiny image of the Lincoln statue is actually visible inside the memorial, sitting between the central columns. Surrounding the memorial are the words, "United States of America," and "E pluribus unum," Latin for "out of many one," while the bottom bears the denomination 1 cent. Now that we've painted a picture of the coin itself, let's explore why collectors have such an interest in the 1981 D penny. It's not just about age or design, it's about condition, rarity, and error types. Condition is one of the biggest factors in coin value. Most 1981 D pennies you'll find in circulation today are worn down, scratched, and discolored from decades of use. These are generally worth face value, just a penny. But when you find one that has survived in pristine condition, with no signs of wear, sharp details, and original luster, that's where collectors pay attention. Coins in higher mint state grades, certified by grading services like PCGS or NGC, can fetch significantly more money. A simple penny that grades MS67 or higher is not so simple anymore. It becomes a collectible treasure. Beyond condition, minting errors and varieties make this coin truly fascinating. The U.S. Mint produces billions of coins every year, and with such massive production, mistakes are inevitable. For collectors, these mistakes are golden opportunities. Some of the most notable errors and varieties for the 1981 D Lincoln cent include doubled dies, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and broad strikes. A double die occurs when the coin is struck with a die that has been improperly manufactured, creating a doubling effect on the design. On a 1981 D penny, you might see this doubling on the date, the lettering, or Lincoln's profile. These varieties are extremely popular and can command hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on the severity and visibility of the doubling. Off-center strikes are another fascinating error. If the blank planchet is not aligned properly when struck, the resulting coin can show a portion of the design missing, with blank space where the design should be. The more dramatic the off-center strike, the rarer and more valuable the coin becomes. Similarly, clipped planchets, coins that were struck on blanks with missing edges, create unusual shapes that collectors prize. One of the reasons the 1981 D penny stands out is its position as a transition coin. Since 1982 marked the shift from copper to zinc, the 1981 issues are considered the last of an era. This historical importance adds to their desirability, especially for collectors who want to complete sets that capture every change in American coinage. A copper penny simply feels different from the lighter zinc pennies we use today, and that tangible sense of history makes coins like the 1981D more meaningful. The Denver Mint itself has an important role in American coinage. Established in the early 20th century, it has produced billions of coins that circulate across the country. Coins from Denver are marked with the letter D, while those from Philadelphia in 1981 generally have no mint mark at all. This distinction between mint marks becomes critical when identifying rarities. Collectors often seek examples from every mint to complete a full set, making the 1981D an essential piece of the puzzle. Let's also consider the cultural significance of the penny itself. While some argue that the penny should be retired because of its low purchasing power, it remains deeply embedded in American culture. Sayings like, "A penny for your thoughts," and "Find a penny, pick it up," reflect how this tiny coin has worked its way into everyday language. The Lincoln penny in particular is cherished not just as currency but as a symbol of history, honoring one of the nation's most admired presidents. But what about the value? This is where the story gets truly exciting. While most 1981D pennies are still worth just 1 cent, certain rare examples have been sold for astounding prices at auction. When a coin is discovered with the perfect storm of condition, rarity, and error, collectors will bid fiercely to own it. In fact, one extraordinary specimen of the 1981D penny in pristine condition with remarkable details and near-flawless preservation once sold for the staggering amount of $39,499. Have you ever thought that the change jingling inside your pocket might be worth far more than just a penny? What if I told you that a coin so ordinary-looking, so simple, and so commonly overlooked could actually be hiding a value that collectors across the world are willing to pay a fortune for? Today, we're diving into the story of one of the most intriguing and highly sought-after coins in modern American history, the 1982 no-mint mark Lincoln 1-cent penny. At first glance, this coin looks just like the billions of other pennies produced by the United States Mint. A copper-colored piece featuring the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln on the front, and the stately Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. Nothing unusual, right? But here's the fascinating twist. In the world of numismatics, the study and collection of coins, not everything is as it seems. Sometimes, a small detail, an unnoticed variation, or even the lack of something expected, can turn an everyday coin into a treasure worth thousands. And the 1982 no-mint mark penny is the perfect example. To understand why this coin is so significant, let's step back into history. The year 1982 was a turning point for the United States Mint. Prior to this year, pennies were struck primarily from copper, with each cent containing about 95% copper and 5% zinc. But rising copper prices in the early 1980s meant that it was actually costing the government more than 1 cent to make a penny. This didn't make sense financially, so the mint decided to change the composition of the coin. Starting in 1982, they began producing pennies made mostly of zinc, coated with just a thin layer of copper to maintain the traditional look. This meant that in 1982, the mint was producing pennies with not just one metal composition, but two. Some were the traditional copper alloy, and some were the new zinc-based design. And to make things even more interesting, this was also the year that saw multiple design variations, large date and small date versions. When you add in the fact that pennies were struck at different facilities, including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, you begin to see why 1982 is such a fascinating year for coin collectors. It was a year full of transitions, experiments, and small differences that would later mean everything. Now here's where the no-mint mark variety comes into play. Normally, pennies struck at the Philadelphia Mint carry no mint mark at all, which is why collectors refer to these as no mint mark pennies. This isn't unusual in itself, but combined with the transition year of 1982, it created a perfect storm of varieties that collectors go absolutely crazy for. There are 8 different variations of 1982 pennies, including combinations of copper and zinc, large date and small date, and the presence or absence of a mint mark. But among these, the 1982 no mint mark small date copper penny stands out as the holy grail. So, what makes this particular coin so desirable? The answer lies in its rarity, and its place in coin collecting history. You see, while billions of pennies were produced in 1982, only a small fraction ended up being struck with the exact combination of features that define this coin. It's the kind of mistake, or happy accident, that the mint didn't plan for but that collectors live for. Think of it like a printing error in a famous book or a rare misprint in a baseball card. The combination of being part of everyday life while also being rare is what drives collectors to pay astronomical prices. To the average person, pulling a penny like this from circulation would seem insignificant. After all, it's just 1 cent, right? But to a dedicated numismatist, spotting the subtle difference between a large date and a small date, or testing the coin's metal composition, could mean uncovering a small fortune. In fact, countless collectors spend hours sifting through jars of pennies, examining them under magnifying glasses, hoping to catch sight of that elusive 1982 no-mint mark variety. And when one surfaces, it's like finding buried treasure. Now let's talk about the identifying features that make this coin so special. The small date design is slightly different in appearance from the large date. The numerals in the year are more delicate and closer together, with the 2 in 1982 being the biggest giveaway. On the small date, the 2 has a slightly different curvature compared to the large date. And then, of course, the composition test is key, determining whether the coin is copper or zinc. Copper coins weigh about 3.1 grams, while zinc coins are noticeably lighter at around 2.5 grams. So, the prized coin is the 1982 no-mint mark small date copper penny. If you can find one of these in excellent condition, you're holding something truly extraordinary. Collectors are willing to pay handsomely for such a rarity, and when these coins make their way into auctions, they often fetch jaw-dropping sums. The demand for this penny has continued to grow as more people become aware of its existence. Social media, YouTube channels, and coin forums are full of excited collectors showing off their finds, comparing notes, and chasing the dream of discovering one in their pocket change. It's become a sort of modern-day treasure hunt, where ordinary people get the chance to experience the thrill of striking it rich from something as humble as a penny. But beyond the money, there's something deeply fascinating about the story this coin tells. It represents a turning point in American coinage, a moment when economic pressures forced change, and yet in that chaos, something rare and valuable was created. It's a reminder that history can be captured in the smallest of objects, and that even the tiniest coin can carry a story worth telling. Think about it for a moment. How many times have you passed over a penny without giving it a second thought? Maybe you dropped one on the sidewalk and didn't bother to pick it up. Maybe you have a jar full of pennies gathering dust in your closet. For most of us, pennies are just a nuisance. But hidden among those countless coins, there could be a piece of history that could change your life. That's the magic of the 1982 no-mint mark penny. Collectors often say that coin collecting isn't just about money, it's about the stories, the history, and the connection to the past. And with this penny, you get all of that in one. A glimpse into the economic struggles of the early 1980s, the decisions made at the mint, the small design changes that went unnoticed at the time, and the modern-day hunt for treasure. It's the kind of story that makes coin collecting one of the most fascinating hobbies in the world. Imagine the excitement of finding one yourself. You're sitting at the kitchen table, rolling pennies or counting your change, when you spot a 1982 penny. You look closer, compare the date style, maybe even weigh it. And then it hits you, you've just uncovered one of the rarest pennies in circulation. Your heart races, your hands shake, and suddenly, that 1 cent coin feels like gold in your palm. This is why collectors chase after coins like this. It's not just the monetary value, it's the thrill of discovery, the sense that you're holding a piece of history, something that connects you to a bigger story. And every time one of these pennies surfaces, it only adds to the legend, fueling the excitement of the hunt for the next one. So, what's the bottom line here? If you're sitting on a pile of old pennies, don't ignore them. Take the time to look closely, because you never know what might be hiding in plain sight. The 1982 no-mint mark penny is proof that treasures still exist in the everyday, waiting for someone with a sharp eye and a bit of patience to find them. And for those who are lucky enough to own one in pristine condition, the rewards are astonishing. Some of these coins have been sold for truly impressive amounts of money, turning what was once pocket change into a collector's dream. In fact, one of these rare 1982 no-mint Mark Lincoln 1-cent pennies has been valued at an incredible $34,567. Welcome back, everyone, to another fascinating journey into the hidden treasures of American coins. Today, we're diving into the world of the 1983 Lincoln 1-cent penny, specifically the no-mint Mark version that many collectors overlook. At first glance, it may just seem like an ordinary penny you'd find in your pocket change, maybe tossed aside without a second thought. But sometimes, what looks like a common coin is actually hiding a story worth thousands of dollars. Now, let's take a moment to travel back in time to the early 1980s. America was undergoing economic challenges, inflation was still in the minds of many families, and the U.S. Mint was facing the rising cost of materials. For decades, pennies had been struck primarily from copper, but by 1982, the price of copper had climbed so high that the cost of making a single cent was dangerously close to exceeding its face value. Something had to change, and quickly. So, in 1982, the U.S. Mint made a historic decision. The traditional copper penny would be retired, and in its place would come a new version, one that looked the same on the outside but was very different on the inside. Instead of being composed almost entirely of copper, the new penny was made primarily from zinc, coated with a thin layer of copper to give it its familiar appearance. It was lighter, cheaper to produce, and marked a major turning point in American coinage. By 1983, the first full year of this new composition, every penny leaving the U.S. Mint was made of zinc with a copper coating. But this shift didn't come without complications. The new zinc-based pennies were far more prone to errors during production. The softer zinc cores could bubble, blister, or crack under the pressure of minting, creating odd and unusual varieties that collectors would one day prize. And among these 1983 pennies, the no-mint Mark Lincoln cent from the Philadelphia Mint began to gain a reputation for being more valuable than most people realized. But before we get into values and what makes this coin so special, let's talk about the design itself. On the front, or obverse, of the coin, we see the classic portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner and first introduced in 1909 to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. His profile faces right, with the word Liberty to his left and the year of issue, 1983, stamped just below. The motto, "In God We Trust," arcs across the top. What's interesting here is the lack of a mint mark beneath the year. Coins struck in Philadelphia generally carry no mint mark, so while this may seem ordinary, it is this exact detail that sets the stage for its classification as a no mint mark variety. Turning to the back, or reverse, of the coin, we see the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. And here lies a small but fascinating detail. If you look closely at the base of the memorial with a magnifying glass, you can actually see a tiny image of Lincoln seated inside, visible between the central columns. It's a detail many casual observers miss, but it remains one of the most charming touches of the design. Now, what makes the 1983 penny so intriguing is not just the switch to zinc, but also the unexpected errors and varieties it produced. You see, whenever there's a major change in coin composition, the chances of mistakes increase. And collectors know that mistakes often mean money. One of the most famous varieties related to this coin is the 1983 double die reverse penny. This version shows strong doubling on the reverse side, especially in the inscriptions like 1 cent and United States of America. For collectors, this doubling is like a neon sign flashing, rare, and valuable. While that's a separate category, it's important to understand how the 1983 penny became a standout year because of errors like these. But even without doubling or dramatic errors, the 1983 no-mint mark penny holds surprising value in higher grades. The reason is tied to its composition. Zinc pennies are notoriously fragile. They corrode, they pit, and they damage easily, making well-preserved examples rare. Coins that remain in pristine, mint-state condition without blemishes are incredibly desirable to collectors, and that drives up their value. Think about it. How many times have you seen a shiny 1983 penny still looking as crisp as the day it left the mint? The reality is, most 1983 pennies in circulation today are scratched, worn, or discolored. Finding one in top condition is like stumbling upon a hidden gem. Let's add another layer to this story. While 1982 was the transitional year between copper and zinc, 1983 is known entirely for zinc cents. That means every no-mint marked 1983 penny from Philadelphia should, in theory, be zinc. But there are rumors and reports that a few 1983 pennies may have been accidentally struck on leftover copper planchets. If verified, these would be extraordinarily rare, fetching astronomical sums at auctions. It's the kind of discovery that keeps collectors checking every single penny from their change jars. So, when it comes to evaluating the 1983 no-mint marked penny, condition is king. The grading scale used by professionals ranges from poor to perfect, with the most sought-after examples being mint state coins graded MS65 or higher. These coins exhibit sharp details, brilliant luster, and virtually no marks from handling. Collectors pay premiums for such examples because they represent the very best of what has survived the test of time. Auction houses have recorded impressive sales for high-grade 1983 pennies, especially those showing rare errors. But even without errors, the value of a simple no-mint mark Philadelphia issue can surprise you. Imagine finding a coin worth thousands of dollars in a coin jar, hidden away for decades. Now, let's bring all this information together. The 1983 no-mint mark Lincoln 1-cent penny may appear to be just another coin rattling around in your pocket or sitting unnoticed in your kitchen drawer. But its story is one of transition, history, and hidden treasure. Born from America's need to adapt to rising material costs, struck from fragile zinc that makes surviving examples rare, and surrounded by a cloud of intriguing varieties and potential errors, this coin has earned a place in the spotlight of numismatic history. So, the next time you come across a penny dated 1983, take a closer look. Check for doubling, examine its condition, and consider the possibility that what you hold might not be so ordinary after all. While millions of these coins were produced, only a fraction survive in high-grade condition, and even fewer display the kinds of traits that make collectors willing to pay top dollar. And here's the moment you've been waiting for: the value. While most examples may only be worth face value, pristine specimens of the 1983 no-mint mark Lincoln cent have sold for astonishing amounts. In fact, one remarkable example reached the incredible price of $23,948. So check your pockets, search your jars, and never underestimate the power of the humble penny. Because hidden among the billions, there just might be a fortune waiting for you. Have you ever wondered if a single penny sitting in your pocket, or maybe hiding inside an old jar in your drawer, could be worth a fortune? Most people look at a penny as the smallest unit of American currency, almost insignificant, something we hardly bend down to pick up when we see it lying on the sidewalk. But what if I told you that one specific penny, minted in 1987 with a small d under the date, could secretly hold an astonishing value that could change your life? Today, we're diving into the mysterious and fascinating world of the 1987 D Lincoln 1-cent penny, a coin that may appear ordinary to the untrained eye but has stories, errors, and collector demand behind it that could make it worth thousands of dollars. By the end of this video, you'll understand why coin collectors hunt down certain pieces like treasure hunters searching for gold, and why this 1-cent coin has the power to surprise even the most experienced numismatists. Stay tuned, because the final value will absolutely shock you. Let's begin with a little background. The Lincoln cent has been an American classic since 1909, introduced to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the coin has remained one of the longest-running designs in United States history. Over time, the Lincoln penny has gone through changes, including alterations in composition, mint marks, and even its reverse design. But the penny's enduring place in American life makes every version important to collectors. Now, let's jump ahead to 1987. Ronald Reagan was President of the United States. Technology was advancing rapidly. The stock market had just gone through the infamous crash known as Black Monday. And pop culture was dominated by big movies, iconic music, and a growing fascination with computers. While all of this was happening, the U.S. Mint was quietly producing billions of pennies, continuing the long tradition of keeping Lincoln's portrait in circulation. In 1987, pennies were minted in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The Denver Mint, identified by its D Mint mark placed just below the date, struck hundreds of millions of these coins. To the casual observer, the 1987 D penny looks like any other, featuring Lincoln's profile on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, which had been in use since 1959. So why would a coin minted in such large numbers be worth more than face value? The answer lies in a combination of rarity, condition, and collector demand. While most 1987 D pennies are only worth 1 cent, or perhaps slightly more to collectors looking to complete a basic set, there are certain factors that can push their value into the hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of dollars. Let's explore those reasons step by step. First, condition plays a huge role. Coins are graded on a scale from poor to perfect, with mint state coins, often labeled MS, being the most desirable. Imagine a penny that has survived since 1987 without ever being circulated, one that still has its original luster and sharp detail. Such coins are incredibly rare, especially for a denomination that most people use daily without a second thought. A 1987 D penny in flawless condition is already far more valuable than one that's been through decades of pockets, registers, and change jars. But condition isn't the only factor. Mint errors add another layer of intrigue. The U.S. Mint strikes coins in massive numbers, and with that scale comes the possibility of mistakes. Double strikes, off-center strikes, misaligned dies, and other unusual errors can make a coin one of a kind. Collectors prize these mistakes because they're physical evidence of something unusual slipping through the careful process of minting. A 1987 D penny with an error might look strange compared to a normal one, but to the right collector, that oddity is what makes it valuable. There's also the matter of history and nostalgia. Coins are tiny time capsules, carrying with them the weight of the year they were struck. For people born in 1987, or for families who remember important events from that time, owning a 1987 penny in pristine condition can feel deeply personal. Nostalgia has a powerful influence on the collecting world, and it can drive up demand for coins tied to particular years. Now, you might be wondering, if billions of these pennies were minted, how can any of them be rare? That's a great question, and the answer lies in survival. Think of it this way: billions may have been struck, but how many still exist in gem condition? How many escaped circulation, scratches, and wear? The truth is, only a tiny fraction remain in the kind of state that excites collectors, and those few survivors are what make all the difference in value. This is why coin grading companies, like PCGS and NGC, play such an important role. Collectors often send their coins to be professionally graded and authenticated, ensuring that when they buy or sell, they know exactly what they're dealing with. A 1987 D penny graded MS67 or higher could command incredible prices at auction. Every small increase in grade can translate into hundreds or even thousands of dollars in difference. That's how precise and competitive this hobby can be. Let's pause for a moment and paint a picture. Imagine sitting at your kitchen table, sorting through a pile of old change you've been keeping in a jar for years. You pull out a 1987 D penny, and at first glance, it looks like every other 1-cent piece you've ever seen. But then, under closer inspection, you realize the coin has an unusual shine, a sharpness in detail, and maybe even a slight error that makes it unique. Suddenly, that penny in your hand isn't just worth 1 cent, it's a ticket to something extraordinary. Stories like this have happened before. Across America, ordinary people have discovered that coins they've overlooked for years were worth small fortunes. That's why coin collecting is often compared to treasure hunting. The treasure isn't always buried under the ground. Sometimes, it's hiding in your change jar, waiting to be discovered. Of course, not every 1987 D penny will be worth much more than face value. The majority are still common. But that's where the thrill comes in, because among the millions of ordinary examples, there are always a few extraordinary ones. The challenge is spotting them, protecting them, and understanding their true worth. Collectors today are more connected than ever before, thanks to online communities, auctions, and price guides. It's not uncommon for rare coins to attract bidding wars, with prices climbing higher and higher as passionate collectors compete for ownership. And when a 1980 penny in exceptional condition comes up for sale, it doesn't just attract attention, it makes headlines in the numismatic world. Think about the irony here. A coin designed to be the lowest form of American currency can, under the right circumstances, become a symbol of immense value. It's a reminder that in the world of collecting, rarity, history, and demand can transform the simplest objects into treasures. The penny you might dismiss as too small to matter could secretly be worth more than a car, a down payment on a house, or even a college education. So what should you do if you have a 1980 penny in your possession? The first step is to examine it carefully. Look at the date and the mint mark. Study the condition. Does it still have its original shine, or is it worn from years of circulation? Are there any unusual marks, off-center designs, or other features that might suggest a mint error? If you think your coin has potential, consider having it graded by a professional service. Even if you're not a serious collector, knowing what you truly have is always worth it. Now comes the part you've been waiting for. After everything we've discussed, the history, the rarity, the grading, the demand, how much could one of these pennies actually be worth at the very top end of the market? Brace yourself, because the number might leave you speechless. One particularly rare and pristine 1980 Lincoln penny has sold for an astounding $33,487. Yes, you heard that right. A coin most people would dismiss as pocket change, a single penny that looks just like any other, can carry a price tag of $33,487 in the right circumstances. That's the magic of coin collecting, and that's why the hunt never ends. So the next time you see a penny, don't overlook it. Don't toss it aside or leave it behind. Take a closer look, because you never know what treasure might be hiding in plain sight. The 1980 penny proves that even the smallest coin can hold the biggest surprise. The story of the United States 1-cent coin is one that stretches across centuries, and among these humble copper and zinc pieces lies a fascinating chapter about a specific year, a specific minting, and a coin that has managed to capture the attention of collectors everywhere. Today, we are diving deep into the world of the 1991 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin that may seem ordinary at first glance but holds secrets, history, and potential value that could change the way you see the pennies sitting in your own pocket. Most people overlook the penny. After all, it's the smallest denomination of American currency, often tossed into jars, car cup holders, or forgotten at the bottom of a drawer. But for coin enthusiasts and historians, every penny has a story, and some stories are worth far more than a cent. The 1991 penny without a mint mark is one of those rare cases where everyday change becomes a piece of history, with collectors around the world eager to discover one in pristine condition. To understand why the 1991 no mint mark Lincoln penny is significant, let's first step back and talk about its lineage. The Lincoln cent was first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States. For the first 50 years of its life, the coin bore the beloved wheat ears design on the reverse. But in 1959, on the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, the reverse design was changed to feature the Lincoln Memorial. This design, created by Frank Gasparo, would dominate the reverse of the penny until 2008, making coins minted during that era an important part of modern coin collecting. By the time we reach 1991, the Lincoln Memorial design was firmly established as a familiar sight to Americans. Millions upon millions of pennies poured out of the U.S. Mint each year, destined for circulation. But not every penny is created equal, and it is here that details such as mint marks, condition, errors, and varieties come into play. These seemingly small details can make the difference between a penny that is only worth face value and one that could be worth thousands. Now, what makes the 1991 penny without a mint mark special? In the United States, coins are produced at different mints: Philadelphia, Denver, San Francisco, and at times, West Point. Each mint has its own identifying mark, or mint mark, usually placed on the obverse side of the coin. The Philadelphia Mint traditionally did not use a mint mark on circulating pennies, which means that most 1991 pennies struck there appear without a mint mark. While this might sound like it should make them common, the intrigue comes when collectors realize that variations in condition, die quality, and small minting anomalies can dramatically affect the desirability of these coins. A coin struck without a mint mark in 1991 might appear to the casual observer as just another penny, but under the microscope of the collector, it can become something truly extraordinary. Condition is the most important factor. Collectors are obsessed with mint state coins, those that have survived the decades without scratches, wear, or discoloration. A flawless 1991 penny with no mint mark, preserved as though it just rolled off the press, is far rarer than most people realize. That rarity, combined with demand from collectors, is what drives the value higher. But condition isn't the only thing to watch out for. Sometimes errors occur during the minting process. A doubled die, an off-center strike, or even a coin struck on the wrong metal planchet can transform a common penny into a one-of-a-kind treasure. While not every 1991 penny carries such dramatic errors, examples do exist, and when they surface at auctions, they can command shocking prices. Imagine finding a coin that looks like it was stamped twice, or one with Lincoln's profile slightly shifted from its proper position. That's the kind of discovery that excites the collecting world. The fascination with the 1991 no mint mark penny is not only about its potential for rarity, but also about the human stories behind coin collecting itself. For many, coin collecting is more than just a hobby, it's a connection to history. Holding a penny from 1991 brings back memories of a particular time in America, the early 90s, a period of cultural change, shifting politics, and everyday life that now feels distant. The penny becomes a small time capsule, a reminder of what people carried in their wallets, the purchases they made, and the world they lived in. For collectors who grew up in the 90s, finding a pristine 1991 penny without a mint mark carries a nostalgic value. It's not just a coin, it's a piece of their childhood. This emotional connection, paired with the thrill of hunting for hidden treasures, drives the market and ensures that certain coins, like the 1991 penny, never fade from interest. Let's talk more about the design itself. On the obverse, we have Victor David Brenner's iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln, first introduced in 1909. It's a design that has stood the test of time, making it the longest-running portrait to appear on a U.S. coin. Lincoln faces to the right, with the inscriptions, "In God We Trust," above, "Liberty," to the left, and the date, 1991, to the right. If the coin was minted in Philadelphia, there is no mint mark present beneath the date, just a clean space. It's this lack of a mint mark that defines the coin we are exploring today. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial stretches across the coin, a design meant to symbolize national unity and the legacy of one of America's greatest presidents. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny rendition of Lincoln's statue inside the memorial, a detail many people overlook. This design has graced billions of pennies, yet each one carries its own unique journey from mint to pocket to collector's case. By 1991, pennies were no longer made primarily from copper. In 1982, the mint transitioned from 95% copper to a composition of 97.5% zinc with a thin copper plating. This change was made because rising copper prices made it too expensive to continue producing the coin in its traditional metal. As a result, pennies from 1991 and beyond are lighter and have a distinctly different metallic makeup than their predecessors. This detail matters to collectors, as certain transitional years, like 1982, saw both compositions minted. While 1991 pennies are all of the zinc and copper-plated variety, the shift in composition remains an important part of their story. Another fascinating aspect of coin collecting is grading. Professional coin grading services like PCGS and NGC have created systems that rate coins on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 representing a perfect, flawless example. A 1991 no mint mark penny in circulated condition, something that has been in people's pockets, purses, and change jars, may only be worth face value. But an uncirculated example graded at MS65 or higher can fetch far more, especially when collectors are competing for the best of the best. Over the years, auctions have seen remarkable prices realized for 1991 pennies without mint marks in exceptional condition. What drives these prices is not only the rarity of flawless examples, but also the demand among collectors who specialize in Lincoln cents. Some collect by year, striving to build complete sets. Others seek out error coins. And some simply want the highest grade available, pushing prices upward in their pursuit. So, how do you know if you might have a valuable 1991 penny without a mint mark? The first step is to look closely at the condition. Is the coin shiny, with no scratches or signs of wear? Does the luster reflect light evenly across the surface? If so, it might be worth setting aside. Next, look for any unusual features, doubling in the lettering or date, off-center strikes, or anything that looks out of the ordinary. These characteristics could indicate an error coin, which can be especially valuable. Finally, consider having the coin professionally graded. While this does cost money, it can also authenticate the coin and give collectors confidence when buying or selling. Coin collecting has always thrived on stories like this, stories of people discovering hidden treasures in the most unexpected places. There are countless tales of individuals who found rare coins in pocket change, at garage sales, or in old jars handed down through family. The excitement of possibly uncovering a valuable penny in your own possession adds to the allure and keeps the tradition of collecting alive. The 1991 no mint mark Lincoln penny may seem unremarkable to many, but to those who know where to look, it represents opportunity, history, and even the potential for life-changing value. It is a reminder that even the smallest coin in circulation can hold enormous significance, and that treasure can be hiding in plain sight. And now, we come to the part that everyone has been waiting for. What is the highest value that has been recorded for a 1991 no mint mark Lincoln penny in exceptional condition? Believe it or not, one such coin has been sold for an astonishing $49,266.